everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this Q&A with the Director of American Gadfly. I am thrilled to welcome Skye Wallin back to join us for a Q&A. Welcome, Skye. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I just want to start off, if you could tell us a little bit about how you came across this story in the first place, and more importantly, how you knew that there was a film to be made from it.
Yeah, well, ever since I was in, I guess, my senior year of high school, when I became fervently anti-war, I noticed Mike Gravel on the debate stage back in the 07-08 primaries. I've always wanted to do something about Mike Gravel, and looking in his past at how he helped to publish the Pentagon Papers, helping Daniel Ellsberg in his effort, and indeed helping the free press get an out from the lawsuits coming from the United States government. I thought that his story was sort of unsung, untold. And so, for several years through film school and whatnot, I've, always had in the back of my mind, it'd be great to do a movie about Mike, this kind of renegade senator maverick, and tell a different type of story about the Pentagon Papers. Anyways, I never really figured out how to do that. And then all of a sudden in, I guess, 2019, early in the election cycle, I read in the Rolling Stone that these young kids were tweeting on Mike's behalf and tweeting quite effectively and quite radically. And I actually had the senator's phone number. I called him and I said, I don't know how to do it yet, but I would love to start filming this story from the ground level. And he said, absolutely. So in a weird way, just by waiting and being ineffective in my script writing, I kind of stumbled upon the perfect end to telling Mike's story, which was a contemporary story about youth activism, about youth, getting involved, jumping into the arena, while also being able to tell a story about a great American icon, and going back in history. So it kind of worked out magically.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, the way that the fact that you actually already were so interested in Mike and that was the origin. Like for me, it seemed like because of the uniqueness of the kids and the way that they came to it, that would be the origin of the story. And the fact that it was actually the opposite. You were looking for an opportunity and there was this incredible story that, it's almost like it landed in your lap in a weird way. And I'm wondering, given that and given your enthusiasm, over the years for Mike's work, of how much maybe you saw of yourself in those kids and how much maybe you wish that you could have done something like what they had done.
Yeah, well, I'm now 32. When I was starting the documentary, I was about, 30 or 29. And when I first heard about these kids and started to meet them, I was thinking, wow, we would have been friends, if we were in high school together. But the little things throughout the production, you realize you're a 30-year-old, you're not cool. You're definitely not like, and I was glad because, I was thinking about things like insurance and who's going to drive the rental car and keep kids safe. Like, my goodness. So I felt a lot of responsibility. However, I would say that, I definitely realized that there was definitely a kinship, I guess, but they're way smarter than me, that's for sure. When I was campaigning for Mike back in 07-08, I was pretty much the only person on campus who knew who he was. But by the end of that year, everyone knew who he was, just because I was really annoying about it. But, they were able to tap into technology in a way that I was not able to. And they were able to seize on a moment, which I think, Bernie Sanders and AOC and some of these progressive leaders have helped pave the way for a more left point of view to be way more receptive to a larger audience. So, and the kids are part of that, I think, riding that wave. And, the timing was better this time. But I feel like I was able to finish unfinished work in following them. That said, I didn't want to make a puff piece. I didn't want to make a campaign, propaganda piece. I wanted to tell a real story and tell it honestly. And, I want to be supportive, of course, but I definitely didn't want to feel like a leg of the campaign. So I tried hard to tell a objective story as much as possible.
Yeah, and a really entertaining one. So what do you think this story says about the capacity for young people to get involved in the political system and not just, to make their voices heard, as we often see, but really to push their agenda forward? Do you think that this was like kind of a fluke situation, or that it represents an opportunity for meaningful change and for real youth representation?
I don't think it's a fluke. I think, if anything, the movie tells that anyone can get involved, anyone can make a splash. The kids, spoiler alert, Mike doesn't win the presidency. But that doesn't mean the kids didn't make a difference. So, they lose, but I call it the Rocky, the original Rocky ending where, he loses, but he really wins because, he shows people that he shows everyone, underdog can make it in some capacity. So, I think that, obviously the kids lucked out in that Mike was, kind of the perfect candidate in that way. But I think asymmetrical campaigns are here to stay. I think you look at, the Web 3.0 as it's becoming more individualized. We're going to be seeing a lot more campaigns that are tailor-made for the individual experience, if you will. So I think, I hope anyone that take away wherever you are on the political spectrum, I think it's very clear that with technology, anyone can do, anyone can reach for the stars, I guess. You might not hit it, but, if enough people are doing, these kind of asymmetrical sort of efforts for the right causes, I think it'll grow into a, real effective change.
That's a powerful message. And I think, particularly given the impact of so many issues on young people these days and how aware they are of it, that I feel like there's a lot of potential there. We're showing this film as part of our education program. And, I think it's really important for students to be able to hear that they have that kind of power.
Yeah. The kids kind of re-inspired me in a way that, I was kind of coming of age, realizing, oh my God, like the climate and the war, the military, the industrial conflict, all these forces that I had nothing to do with their creation. They were created, generations before me. But what was inspiring about watching the kids is that they saw these problems, they came of age, witnessed destruction around them. And then instead of just complaining about it, they jump into the arena. So I think anyone should take that message to heart. If you have a problem with something, no matter what age you are, get in the arena. Like, complaining in the echo chamber ultimately doesn't really help.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit what each of the young people in the film are up to now? Are they continuing their participation in the political process? And did this experience kind of encourage or discourage them to continue?
No, I think they're doubling and tripling down. They've started the Gravel Institute. Sadly, Mike passed a couple of months ago. And, he, as the movie ends, it ends with the creation of the Gravel Institute. And I think, there's multiple parts of the Gravel Institute. There's preserving Mike's story, Mike's legacy, his footage of him, his records, his documents, preserving his documents about direct democracy, which was his main driving force that he advocated for. But also the kids have just opened up a studio in New York City. They are producing content, weekly, monthly, short form content that is meant to educate the public. And there's a big youth focus. They have, fun animations. And so they're, I think, trying to create an avenue for disaffected youth and otherwise, a place for them to go and not just be totally black-pilled, I think. But as I talk to Henry and David regularly, they're constantly dissatisfied with where they're at. So they're going to keep, raising the bar. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see where they go.
Are there ways for students who watch the film, who are watching this, that they can get involved with the Gravel Institute, or ways that you can encourage them to, participate in that process?
Yeah, I think you can go to the Gravel Institute website, sign up for their newsletter, and their Twitter. They're mostly active on Twitter, but they're on, all the social media channels. And I think, plugging into what they're talking about at the moment, I think you'll be able to stay up to date on how you can be involved. But they're very engaged in conversation. They're very active in replying to people, and I think as election cycles come through, they're going to be getting more and more involved in elevating candidates, elevating messages, and pushing the establishment to be more morally courageous, I think, just like Mike was. So. Mm-hmm.
And these, this campaign was obviously like an all-in, all the time ongoing, process. And I think, I'm sure running the Gravel Institute is to some degree. Is it possible for young people to be involved without it having to, take over their lives or be their primary, but a way that they can stay this kind of involved in the political process as part of their just, regular, civic duty or civic participation in their lives while, pursuing other, other interests, other careers, things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think, the kids were very all in, I think, during the movie, but I think right now they're both all in and doing their own thing. I think, in this day and age, well, I hope that when kids watch the movie, they can see that these kids had a lot of fun actually doing it. It was kind of wacky work.
Right.
But I think that, no matter what you do in your life, you need to find balance. So, you can be involved in politics or in business or whatever you're involved in, you're going to have to find a balance at some point. So, no matter if you're kids or adults or grandparents or whatever, you can definitely be a part of something important, and also have your own life. I think that's super important. Even like, we all need vacation. We all need like other parts of our lives. We cannot always be, advocating for single payer healthcare, because it will destroy you. Like, the powers that be are so colossal in nature that if you don't take some time for yourself, then like it will destroy you, and that's its goal. So I think, try to have fun in whatever you're doing, even if it's serious work, even if, you're trying to fight apocalypse, I think it's vital to like find the fun in it, or else you're going to burn out.
Right.
If you burn out, you're useless to the cause.
Right.
So, definitely.
So given the fact that Mike passed away a little earlier this year at the age of 91, how do you think he felt about this whole election experience for him being the final chapter of his political career? And what do you think that and your film says about his legacy as a progressive and a politician?
I have to say that I feel very satisfied with being a part of actually becoming Mike's friend in the last couple of years of his life. And I can assure you all that he had a smile on his face the day he died. He was this was a roller coaster, like the journey of a lifetime that was kickstarted by David and Henry and Eli and those kids. And then, I got to jump on and be part of it as well and make a movie. And, he literally, like, the movie poster was at his bedside, through the very end. So, like, I can't imagine a greater gift for someone in their twilight moments. So he was thrilled. He was not worried at all about like his legacy, and he fully trusted these kids to continue the work, and ultimately advocating for direct democracy. And I think just on a human level, besides issues, it's just such a sweet, sweet little adventure for a very kind old man and these young kids who gravitated towards him, and they just, it was really, it's kind of that's the heartwarming story thread, I think, that that's very moving to everybody. So, and I forget the next part of your question.
Well, just what it says about his legacy as a progressive and a politician. Because for me, like, he actually it was all new to me. I didn't actually, I was very familiar with the Pentagon Papers as far as Daniel Ellsberg, but I had no idea, and I was alive at the time, but, I was a kid when that happened, and I don't remember anything about him, or, so I feel like what you've done too is just completely elevated his, like, you actually gave him another part of his legacy as far as, a greater awareness of what his historical mark was on the political system.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's the case, and that, I mean, it was very important to me to make sure that Mike's legacy was accurately encapsulated in a dramatic, way, in an effective way, but in a concise way as well. And I think it does that. And I mean, I would say that also Mike had an incredible, like, uncanny ability to, especially as an older man, inspire young people like myself. I mean, and obviously the Gravel Institute boys, but also these legions of people online who just love this guy. And it's people ask me a lot, is it, well, what's with these old guys and these young, Bernie and, but I'm not sure that it's because they're old. I think it's because maybe they're so old that they don't give a crap anymore. and they're just being as blunt as possible. But I think, young people are kind of inspired by Mike in ways that make them creative, make them more active in politics. Like, there's a whole, like, art genre around Mike Gravel, I think. So if you look online, yeah. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but
it does. It was a pretty general question. So kind of going into this whole campaign, did you ever have any doubts that the campaign would last long enough for you even to have a film ultimately in the end?
I mean, as a filmmaker, you lose a lot of sleep, stressing out about a lot of things. I mean, I was just, like, praying that he would get on the debate stage, So I was never worried that it would. I always knew that there would be enough story, and what I figured out was, when it became clear that Mike wasn't going to make it on the debate stage, but they still, like, qualified him. I was disappointed, but I realized it really wasn't about that. And if you talk to Mike, never did Mike think it was any type of failure. If anything, Mike was probably relieved. Whitney Gravel, his wife, was definitely relieved. Mike said that the whole campaign was an overwhelming success, way more successful than the 2008 and 2007 debates where he was actually on the stage. I mean, there was prolonged conversation because the kids made it all viral and made it funny and made it wild and radical online. There continues to be conversation around Mike's issues. And now they're, almost, I think, 400,000 Twitter followers strong, but their engagement is super high. I mean, you'll see people with 3 million followers on Twitter, and they get, a couple of likes on their posts and not high engagement. It's kind of like sort of, hollow followers. The kids are generating massive conversation around Mike's issues. And so Mike was overwhelmed. I mean, he was thrilled. So he reassured us all that this was not a failure by any means. This was a massive, massive success.
Yeah, it definitely, I think it went far beyond what we expected. But like you say, as a documentary filmmaker, you never know where anything's going to go once you start. And you can end up with a totally different story than you thought you were beginning with.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But there was some comfort in that. I knew that they would end. Like, you can start many documentaries about many issues and there's no clear ending, but because of the campaigning nature of it, it's like there are hard dates where it's going to end. So in that way, I feel like we were able to tell a concise story of a campaign. And because it's just a small sort of asymmetrical campaign with limited people, we were able to kind of tell the full story. Whereas if you look at, a campaign movie about, like The War Room is a great example about the Bill Clinton. It's a great film. Tells a story about just a very small group of people, but that was obviously a huge campaign. Any documentary about these sweeping large campaigns, you miss so many things. But I feel like we were able to kind of tell the full, story
Right.
Of a campaign. So just from a political science, point of view, I think it's an interesting study at the very least.
Yeah, definitely. So are there particular audiences that you hope to reach with the film, and what kind of impact do you hope that it has?
Well, I especially since, Mike passed, I'm very focused on getting Mike's story out there. It's very important to me that Mike has his place in history. He does have his place in history, but history depends on people remembering, and he deserves a place in the textbooks. I think that would be a great accomplishment if we could get him in the textbooks, but I'm not counting on that. I hope that beyond Mike's legacy, his main issue of direct democracy is understood and at least talked about. And I hope that people can watch it and feel like they can get involved. And the kids, whatever your political leanings, like if you have a problem with something, you can get in the arena. And these kids, 17, 18 years old, did it. And you don't have to do what they did. But I think no one should feel cynical. Mike, passed at the age of 91 and was not cynical at all. I mean, there's a lot of problems, but think about a guy like Mike who saw so many tragedies, and failures in politics, seeing the lies behind the Vietnam War, and then seeing America get all wrapped up back in war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's others in between. Yet he never stopped fighting and staying optimistic. So I think, people, there's a lot to be excited for with technology and with, just the will to do something, the will to jump in and do something. So I hope that people take that away from it.
Well, thank you so much for the film, Skye, and thank you for taking time to talk to us. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.